Our first type of graph is the histogram. The histogram is used to display quantitative data. So as we talked about, one of our first decisions is to decide if we're dealing with quantitative or qualitative data. Histograms are only good for quantitative data. The purpose of a histogram is to give you the shape of the data, the spread of the data, and the center. It is most useful when you have a long list of numerical data and you want to see the shape. So putting this into practice, the first thing that we're going to do is to create a histogram of the first 30 data pieces of our data set of the 253 students that were surveyed about the average hours of sleep. So in our previous video, we organized this data into a frequency distribution table, and I have that here in the white section. And now we're going to try to draw a histogram, so to visualize this to get a graph of it. So when I draw the histogram, the data itself is always going to go on the horizontal axis. I'm putting a horizontal line here, and I'm putting, let me use red. What goes here is the data. So when we think about our data in this scenario, our data itself, the data that we looked at, was the hours of sleep. And we had the hours of sleep for 30 students, and we organized them into their classes. So this is the hours of sleep. That was our data. And then on our vertical axis, we are always going to put the frequency. So again, I'm going to put that in red because that is like an always, always. That's what goes here. So this is the frequency. Now we have the frequency as an actual column in our frequency distribution table, but it is better to use some more descriptive words. So when we think about, well, what was the frequency? It was the count of the tally marks, and what we were counting up is actually the number of students that fell in each category. So the frequency is the number of students. When I look at my frequency column in this table that we made, I see that my highest frequency is 11. So I need to have tick marks for this to go up to 11. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It looks like I can go to 12. So I'll put every 2 in here. 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 3. We could number all of them if we felt like it. I just didn't. So, and then the hours of sleep, well, we divided those into classes. So my first class was from 5 to 6. So one way of labeling them is to literally put them on, and we're looking at this bottom axis as if it was a number line. So here's 5.01, here's 6, so that's this first class. And there was one person in that category, so we make this bar 1 person tall. Our next class starts right against this because our next class starts at 6.01 and it goes up to 7. And there were 5 in that category. So this second bar goes up to 5 because there were 5 students in that category. My next class, 7.01 to 8. And there were 8 students in that category. My next class is 8.01 to 9, and there were 11. And my final class was 9.01 to 10, and there were 5 again. Now, I didn't fully label these classes because I want to show you another option. So even with our very small histogram, it starts to get really busy with labeling the range of values that fits in each class. And so another option, and it truly is an either or, so it's not a right or wrong, it's truly about what do you prefer. So another option is instead of putting all this class information down here and making this so crowded, is to label these with the midpoints. And so if I do that, I would just put a tick right here in the middle because we see this as a number line, so that's truly the middle. And we found the middle here is 5.5, and I'm rounding off there to fit it on. We found the middle of this one to be 6.5, middle of this one to be 7.5, 8.5, and 9.5. So some people like the midpoints because it's just cleaner and it gives a nice clean look to the graph. And some people hate using the midpoints because it does not convey as much information. They would rather see the actual class numbers as the labels to the horizontal axis. So it is your call. So I'm going to, again, make that note in red here so that we know that this is just a note about the graph rather than the graph itself. So here we can use midpoints. Or, as we had at the beginning, we can use the class range. The class range are referred to as cut points. So they're referred to as cut points because they're where you started and then cut off the class. So we can use either midpoints or cut points when we create the histogram. So we're almost done. We have one last piece that we need on a histogram, and that is that every graph, no matter what, needs a title. So this is the average hours of sleep. We could put more for 30 college students, et cetera, but we definitely need something there as a title that gives some more meaning to the graph. So that is creating a histogram by hand. But really what's typically done is that we want a much larger data set than just 30 values, and then we want to create the histogram with technology. So what I'm asking us to do is to create a histogram of the average hours of sleep for the whole data set, not just the first 30, but the whole data set. So I have given you in Blackboard a link to some data tools. So let me see if we can get this on my screen. So when you click on your link from Blackboard, and this is at the Week 10 folder in Blackboard, opens right away, we get into this area published by the Dana Center, and it has a bunch of apps for working with statistics. And they're free to us, which is phenomenal. So our first app is describing and exploring categorical data, but we said that this data is quantitative, not qualitative, not categorical. So the second app, describing and exploring quantitative variables, that's the one we want. So I click on it. It shows me just an image of what the data is going to look like, and then the actual app is down here at the bottom. So I'm going to click on the link down here at the bottom, and I'm into the app, and you show it has a whole lot of different things here. So I'm using data from the textbook, not our textbook, but a textbook, and specifically I'm doing the sleep study with the average sleep. There's lots of other data in here, but this is just what I'm doing. So, and then it created a histogram for me. And so there's a bunch of things over here on the left that we can change, and I want us to play around with that and make sure that we're comfortable changing them. So the first thing that I wanted us to change is the bin width. So the bin width is the same as the class size, and you can see here with the blue 0.5 on the slider, they set their classes to be a half of 0.5 of an hour long. We have set ours up to be an hour long, so I'm going to move this down to 1. So that's because our classes went like from 5 to 6, 6 to 7, etc. Then I'm going to go down and select where the bin starts. So right now when I look on the graph, it is labeled at the midpoint, And the midpoint of the first bin is 5, but that's not how we set ours up. We set ours up not to be from 4.5 to 5.5, but to be from 4 to 5. So I'm going to select where the bin starts, and I'm going to start my first bin at 4. And so now you see that the histogram changed. And so this first bin just has one data point in it, goes from 4 to 5. And my next bin or class goes 5 to 6, etc., the same way that we did ours by hand. And then I was asking that we look at how to include counts for each bar so that we know how tall it is, because these counts here are going 20, 40, 60, 80. So if you just hover over the bar, it will tell you how tall the bar is. So I see there's just one data in the first one, 6 in the second, 29, 90, 94, 30, and 3. And so just by hovering over the bars, it'll tell you how many data values fell into that class or that bar. I also asked that we change the title. So down here under General Options, it says Edit Plot Title. So we click on that. Right now the title is histogram, but this specifically is showing the average number of sleeps. So average hours of sleep. So I can type in a new title for that. And basically, that's all that we need to do. Below this, there is a box plot that shows up, which is phenomenal. That's not a plot that I'm going to ask you to do. So you're just doing the histogram, which is automatically shown to you in the app. So in review, histogram, automatically shown. Different data sets that are already typed into the app are here, and we can pick among them. These data sets are from the textbook. Later we'll look at what if we have our own data. And then we were able to change the bin width to match our graph that we drew by hand. We were able to change where the bin starts. And then we were able to edit down here the title.